I'm here at the Winsun facility in Shanghai, China. This is their factory in Shanghai where they have many of their 3D printed construction projects. I'm going to be walking around and giving you a little tour of the projects that they've completed. As we walk down this way, you start to see many examples of things that they can print. A big focus of theirs here is sustainability. So you see many of these structures have plants in them with the intention of composting materials beneath. Here, they told me that their intention is to compost material, recyclable waste below, and then use it for the plants after it's composted. All of these structures have different practical uses. This one is meant for jetties in the ocean. It can be used in mass quantity to hold back the ocean and shape some of the channels so that boats can get from the ocean to the bay. What they have here is a smart toilet. Now, it doesn't seem particularly smart to me, but they don't use any water, and instead for this smart toilet system, they use mulch. After you do your business, you pump the mulch out, and they claim that that eliminates the smell. Afterwards, they take the waste matter and they put it into these compartments, and it helps the plants grow. Now we move on to one of their first iterations of a 3D printed house. As you can see, it's a cylindrical shape, and the roof is kind of a thatch material as opposed to being 3D printed. The interior walls at the bottom appear not to be 3D printed. However, you can see at the top the layering indicates that that was in fact printed. Here we can see 3D printed bus stops. They have a few different generations of this that they've built. The first generation is here. It's very simplistic and only features seating and waste bins. The second generation is much more complex. They actually call it the third generation. The third generation of bus stop contains solar panels like you can see on the roof, and then this side here is one of their smart toilets. Take a look inside. And on the other side, we have an unmanned store where patrons can walk in after scanning their face, buy whatever products they need, pay for it, and then walk out without ever having to speak to a cashier. Now we're entering a model of a 3D printed town. All of these homes were 3D printed. They're all quite small, as you can see, and in very close proximity. On the inside, each of them has all of the modern amenities that somebody would expect from a home, just a little bit smaller. Let's check this one out. You can see as we walk in, there's a simple desk or a cabinet, a small bed, an air conditioning unit, a shower, a sink, a toilet. Let's test to see if these actually work. The sink works. As does the toilet. So with all the plumbing installed, they told me that it cost them $10,000 US to build this. which is strikingly similar to the $10,000 that Icon Build claims that it cost them to build a similar 3D printed house. There are many houses built like this. Not all of them have been outfitted with the same amenities. You peek inside here, you can see this one really only has beds. They put up these clothes. I'm not sure if that's just for show or if people are actually living in these houses. Now we move on to some of their larger scale projects. Here they've demonstrated their ability to 3D print columns. They've told me that this beaded system is stronger than traditionally layered 3D printed concrete. They were not able to provide any stress tests or any numerical results from testing for that matter, so it's difficult to substantiate these claims. Now, on the left, you can see that they've installed a foundation in the ground. The guy that gave me the tour didn't have the best English. However, he told me that they were able to save money on excavation using this method of printing. You can see, however, that water has collected inside. I'm not sure if that is because of rainwater or if water is seeping in from the ground. There's a lot of groundwater over there, so it's unclear how the water got into these boxes. Behind me is a multi-story 3D printed building. The columns for this building were all 3D printed, but as we walk inside, you'll see that the trusses have not been 3D printed and are instead made of traditional concrete. I gotta say, it's a little bit disappointing to see them not using only 3D printed parts in their construction. However, that being said, this is a very impressive facility. It's very clear that they have an environmental focus here at Winsun 3D. Here they've built planters that have integrated composting systems. What I was told is that you put waste material in these bins and then worms digest the waste material and create fertilizer for the plants above. This one is specifically made for fish. So on the bottom you can have fish living in the water, and then worms composting material, and then you can feed the worms to the fish. Another use for the worms, they told me, is for feeding chickens or ducks, which are two very popular meals here in China. Now we're about to see many different models of 3D printed walls. Some of them are built with different layering structures or insulation methods. This is the unique beaded structure that they claim is particularly strong, as opposed to a more traditional layered structure like you see here. Now, this is their insulation method. It's one piece of foam. I would be very curious to see the numbers on what good of an insulator it actually is. I couldn't imagine that little piece of foam has a very high R value. Behind me is the official factory that houses their 3D printer. Unfortunately, we're not really able to get a look inside. Apparently, they only let you see the printer if you're a customer or an investor in the company. Now we enter one of my favorite parts of the facility. You can see here they've built a small garden with various fruits and vegetables. And in front of me is their 3D printed bridge, along with their egg house. The egg house is printed in a different material than concrete. It's hard to imagine how it's printed at all, seeing as there's no layers. Here's the 3D printed bridge behind me. They claim it's structurally secure, but we'll see. Now from up here we can see most of the facility. I gotta say, this bridge is probably the coolest part of this facility here. The inside of this egg house is very well finished. It's clear that they put a lot of time into developing it. The inside layer here is an insulating material, they told me, whereas the outside layer is what they printed. It looks like they painted on top of it. You can see some of it chipping away. Maybe one of you knows more than I do about the material that they're using here. But the way they put it inside of a pond is pretty unique. And it looks good next to the bridge. These houses here are meant for northern China, where it gets very cold. So they have stronger insulation that can protect better from the natural elements. Here we have their main offices and pictures of projects that they hope to complete in the future.